The Western Conference playoff party starts today with two big matchups in the play-in tournament between the Memphis Grizzlies and the San Antonio Spurs, and another game later with the Los Angeles Lakers and the Golden State Warriors. Now, both games are very interesting games when you look at not only the players on each side of the ball, but when you look at the storyline for each one of these teams and how they got to their certain positions in this play-in tournament. The Grizzlies and Spurs are two teams that I think are on opposite sides of the spectrum. The San Antonio Spurs really struggled down the stretch to be able to not just stay in the play-in tournament, but I think they were a team that was really trying to lock up that 8th spot or maybe even the 7th spot and try to get home court advantage for this play-in tournament. However, it really just did not work out. They ended up losing 4 of their last 4 games, and I believe they won maybe only 2 out of their last 12 games, something like that. So they really struggled over these last few weeks. And the Memphis Grizzlies, on the other hand, they come into this play-in tournament. They lost a few games, but they won 4 out of their last 5 games. The only one that they lost was against the Golden State Warriors to end the season. So they're kind of riding high coming into this play-in tournament. When you look at the matchups that are possible for throughout this game, I think it's pretty easy to say that DeJounte Murray and Ja Morant are probably going to be going one-on-one during this game. If I'm the Memphis Grizzlies and I'm Taylor Jenkins, the head coach of the Memphis Grizzlies, I am not. If I can do anything possible to not have Dillon Brooks guard DeMar DeRozan, I would do that instantly. Dillon Brooks, to me, has this thing where he thinks he's someone like Marcus Smart, or he thinks he's someone like Patrick Beverley, or he thinks he's someone who's an incredibly lockdown defender who can take anyone out of any game that he wants. And this isn't even like an anti-Dillon Brooks thing. I don't like Dillon Brooks as a basketball player when it comes to how he thinks of himself and how many people probably think about him when they look at his stats. I mean, they say, oh, he's a 17-point-per-game scorer. He's a great defender. When really, when you look at any game that he's the main defender against any star player, whether it be Steph Curry, whether it be Damian Lillard, whether it be literally anyone, he just doesn't do that good of a job when you compare him to other top-tier defenders in the league. I think he thinks he's one of those top-tier guys, and he just really isn't. He comes off as a guy who just thinks he's one of those top guys when it's very easy to see, and it's very easy to tell that he isn't. So I think something like that going into this game where he possibly is going to be drawing the matchup of DeMar DeRozan, I think DeMar DeRozan would just destroy him, whether it be in the post, whether it be in the perimeter, whether it be off the dribble, whether it be just doing whatever. I think DeMar DeRozan would be able to cook Dillon Brooks. Now, where the Memphis Grizzlies are probably going to be able to destroy the San Antonio Spurs is being able to kill them inside. I think Jonas Valanciunas is not going to have an incredible game just because of the fact that Jakob Poeltl is probably one of the bigger matchups and one of the better matchups he's going to go against all year. Jakob Poeltl averages about 2 blocks a game. I think he's bigger than Jonas Valanciunas, which is kind of saying a lot when you look at Jonas Valanciunas. The guy that's probably going to have the biggest game for this Memphis Grizzlies squad is Jaren Jackson Jr. I just don't know who's going to be able to guard him, whether he's out on the perimeter, whether he's inside. I know he came back from his meniscus tear only about 10 or 11 games ago. However, I think he's starting to get back into the flow of his game. He saw some good minutes against the Golden State Warriors in that season finale, and he played pretty well. So I think there's a chance he has a 20, 25-point game today against the Spurs, and it's going to be a big factor for them in this game. Now, the San Antonio Spurs obviously have the experience factor when it comes to looking at not only their players, but their head coach is Greg Popovich. He's been there as the head coach of the Spurs probably longer than Taylor Jenkins has been an adult. And, just when you look at that in a playoff scenario, I know it's technically not the playoffs, but you look at this scenario, it's win or go home. You put Greg Popovich in that scenario. I think he's going to do his best in terms of winning this game. And, who knows? 1 or 2 bounces go the San Antonio Spurs' way, and they win this game. However, I really think it's going to be the Memphis Grizzlies game to lose. Like I said, I think DeJounte Murray and Ja Morant, they're not really going to cancel each other out. I think Ja Morant is probably a little bit better of a player. However, DeJounte Murray is going to give him some work on the offensive side of the ball when it comes to DeJounte Murray guarding Ja Morant. Jakob Poeltl and Jonas Valanciunas are probably going to kind of cancel each other out. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to be the X factor of this game. If Dillon Brooks just stays out of the Grizzlies' way, they should win this game kind of easily. They have much more firepower. They're a little bit of a better defensive team, which seems kind of crazy, but they are a bit of a better defensive team. When you look at anything that is statistical about the Grizzlies and Spurs, the Grizzlies have a better statistical chance of beating the Spurs, so I'll give it to the Grizzlies, probably somewhere in the 115 to 100 range. And now for the biggest play-in game that we've had in NBA history, the Los Angeles Lakers and the Golden State Warriors. Now, the Golden State Warriors and the Los Angeles Lakers both got to this play-in tournament in kind of similar fashions. Both the teams finished with about 40 wins, and both teams had major injury bugs going throughout this season. Both the Lakers and Warriors had main stars out when you look at either LeBron James or Anthony Davis for the Lakers. And then when you look at the Warriors, they had names like, Klay Thompson out for the entire season and Kelly Oubre out for a majority of the season. And both of these teams, through a main stretch of the season, I think a lot of people were kind of waiting for each of these teams to just teeter off the cliff. But being able to lock in the 7th and 8th spots, respectively, for these franchises just shows the sort of, not wherewithal, it just shows the sort of competitiveness in Steph Curry. It shows the sort of competitiveness in someone like LeBron James and the rest of that Lakers squad to be able to just stay competitive and be one of the better teams in the Western Conference, even though their record doesn't necessarily show it. Now, when it comes to this game, this play-in game, even though this isn't a win or go home situation, whoever loses this game is going to have another home game against whoever wins that Grizzlies-Spurs matchup. But I think the Golden State Warriors are kind of looking at this as a must-win situation. I think when you look at the possible matchups for the Warriors, Golden State, even though they are decimated injury-wise, Steph Curry has just absolutely owned Chris Paul throughout his career, whether it be the playoffs, whether it be in the regular season. Chris Paul just doesn't, not that he doesn't put up a fight against Steph Curry, he has good numbers as well, but it seems like Steph Curry always beats Chris Paul, whether it's the playoffs, whether it's whatever. It just seems like Chris Paul is always losing to Steph Curry. Plus, there is the factor of LeBron James and Anthony Davis have been injury-prone this whole entire season. It even seemed like LeBron James hurt his ankle again in that last game of the season. And just everything going together, I think the Golden State Warriors are kind of more in the flow, especially once they've finally got to the point where it's just, hey, Steph Curry, take every three-point shot you want. Draymond, you're going to be the guy bringing the ball up the court a majority of the time. Everybody else that's, Jordan Poole, that's, anybody else on this team, once you get an open shot, once you get an open layup, take it. That's fine. But Steph Curry is going to be the guy to take a majority of these shots. Andrew Wiggins is going to get his shine from time to time when it comes to mid-range shots or driving to the basket. And somebody like, Kent Bazemore, he's just going to be some sort of defensive guy. Kevon Looney's going to be that stopgap center where they're kind of waiting for James Wiseman to come back next year. They just don't have anybody else to play center right now. And, I think with everything going into it, this Golden State Warriors team, with that kind of thinking of they want to win this game, like they really, really want to win this game, I think that's going to push them over the top and beat the Lakers today. Now, I don't think I have to really go too deep into analysis when it comes to that final game, which will be the Los Angeles Lakers and the Memphis Grizzlies for the 8th spot. I think that'll be an easy win for the Lakers. So the Memphis Grizzlies just don't have enough to keep up with LeBron James. Especially if they decide that Dillon Brooks is going to be guarding LeBron James. Everything comes back to Dillon Brooks for me. So, yeah, I just don't think that the Grizzlies could beat the Lakers in that one game, even if Jonas Valanciunas has a favorable matchup against somebody like Marc Gasol or somebody else at that center position. I guess Andre Drummond is there, but either way, I think the Lakers win that handedly. All that being said, that's going to be the video for me. If you are a Grizzlies, Spurs, Lakers, or Warriors fans, let me know why I'm wrong or right about your team either winning or losing. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.